Now the assemblies are ready for reflow soldering. The heating process is done by moving the assemblies through several different thermal zones so that the solder reflows and solidifies. This is called solder reflow. The soldered assemblies will then be visually inspected. Solder joints can also be inspected using AOI equipment. Solder joints on bottom termination components, such as BGAs and QFNs, will need to be verified using X-ray inspection equipment, since these soldered connections will not be visible. Now that we've reviewed the basic surface mount assembly process, let's discuss the details of the reflow soldering process. We'll be focusing on convection reflow ovens, since convection heating is the most common method for surface mount assembly. Convection reflow ovens typically use ceramic heating elements. Instead of having the heat delivered directly onto the circuit board, the heat transfers through various diffusing chambers to spread the heat evenly. A convection fan will blow the hot air into an inner chamber. Each assembly will receive a specific amount of heat within the different chambers or zones inside the oven. Reflow soldering is based upon a thermal cycle. The thermal cycle is defined by the type of solder paste being used, the size of the circuit board, and the temperature limitations of specific components on the board. To create a thermal profile, a reflow oven is divided into independent zones. Each zone can be set to a specific temperature, which allows the board to heat up in a carefully controlled manner. There are also controlled cooling zones that the assembly enters once the solder has melted or reflowed. There are typically 4 basic zones inside the reflow oven. The first area inside the oven is a preheat zone. Preheating allows for a gradual temperature rise of the board, components, and solder paste. If all the required heat were applied immediately, the board and some of the components could be damaged from thermal shock. Preheating allows the temperature to slowly ramp up so that the boards and components are not damaged by the sudden shock of an extremely hot reflow temperature. After the assembly reaches preheat temperature, it will enter the soak zone. The temperature rise in this zone causes the flux in the solder paste to activate or begin to clean. Activation of the acids within the flux allows oxides or contaminants to be cleaned from the metal surfaces. The assembly will then proceed to the reflow zones, where higher temperatures cause reflow and allow solder wetting to take place. Wetting is a term that's used to describe the adhesion of the solder onto the base metals. Next, the assembly will pass through cooling zones to cool the assembly down, allowing the solder to solidify before it exits the reflow oven. The entire process of preheat, soak, ramp up to reflow temperature, and cool down is called the thermal profile.